Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.com. Again, that's dealtohealteas.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of our social media platforms. And also make sure you guys check us out on our new YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. On that channel on YouTube, you will find various podcasts, including the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which you're listening to now, as well as the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. And on that page, we'll also be bringing you more podcasts in the future. So make sure you guys, again, go to the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network in order to watch our podcast, this one and our other podcasts, and look for podcasts that we will be bringing you in the near future. So also make sure you guys check out the descriptions of the show notes. In the description, we have a lot of valuable information, including how you can start your own podcast like this one, and get the Start Your Podcast Now ebook that I wrote, which will help you start your podcast right away, and information about our guests and the products and books that they have is also be in the description. So make sure you guys check out the descriptions. All right. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. James Bond. How you doing today?
Hi, Ernest. How are you? Thanks for having me on your show.
No problem.
Actually, it's a torture to be James Bond. I think my parents had a sense of humor, but people go, James Bond, what?
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, did you get that, or do you do the introduction when you introduce yourself? Like, my name is Bond, James Bond.
So people look for my book sometimes, and they go, James Bond. They got Sean Connery, and they got all these other guys. Right. You're never going to find it.
Right. So first of all, let me say thank you so very much for being on. I definitely appreciate you being here, because could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and I definitely appreciate it. From a conversation that we were having before we actually start recording, I know that you are a girl dad, And so whenever I have girl dads on, I always ask them two questions. And so the first question is, what does it mean for you to be a girl dad? And then the second question is, what is something that your daughter has taught you?
There are a lot of things my daughter has taught me, like to shut up and listen instead of just talk, 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 talk. That was one. Um, and yeah, just I mean, I have a son and three daughters. We have a son and three daughters. I didn't give birth to them. My wife did. Okay. So I think it would be harder if we did.
Yeah.
But no, I learn a lot from them. And my relationship with my daughters I have a son, and it's totally different, the relationship with my son and with my three daughters. And it's fascinating for me because my son was first. So I got to play baseball with him and all
Yeah.
this stuff in our backyard and stuff like that. But our daughter is not, it's not baseball. It's like, hey, let's talk, Dad. And it's like, okay. You got a
Love
daughter.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. So I definitely love to have those conversations, and I know I invited you, and definitely uh, can't wait to have you on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, so we can talk about everything regarding the daddy daughter relationship, because I started that podcast in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. And so I love talking to other girl dads like myself, because we get to share our stories and our relationships, proving that there are girl dads and fathers that are still active, very active in the lives of our daughters, and we do have amazing relationships. And so can't wait to get you on that podcast, and we can have that conversation, which I already know is going to be awesome from the conversation we already had before we start recording. So that's going to be great. But we're here now on the Deal to Heal with James podcast. And so do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
I love telling people. Actually, James Bond is not really my name. It's Fred Flintstone, but that didn't work. So anyway, no, it's not Fred Flintstone. It's James Bond. Anyway, well, um, my mom, when I was a kid, my mom and my middle brother, I'm the oldest of four kids, boy, girl, boy, boy. And my middle brother and my mom would beat me up emotionally. They would attack me. So when I would start talking, they would stop me. They would try to block. So what I did early on is I would try to talk really fast so I can get my stuff in before they cut me off. That doesn't work, by the way. Okay. In time, I started to realize that I need to say stuff where people go, huh? And then they'll stop or shut up and they'll listen. And because I work in marketing also, that really helps. That's really valuable because we want to show something and people go, oh, yeah, tell me more. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm originally from Montreal. I moved to Southern California about 40 years ago. So I'm old. What can I say? And before I moved, I had an advertising company, and I worked my way up and won some major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex watches, Seagram's, their world headquarters is there. And so it was really cool. I had an opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign in America. And I came up with powerful, logical reasons why you should not do drugs, okay? And this is what I learned from this, because logic, when we want to sell something, we want to sell an idea, we want to use emotion because people make decisions for emotional emotional reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign and I lost, and I deserved to lose. And the winner was a guy that created this ad that had a guy holding an egg saying, "This is your brain," and cracked the shell and dropped the egg into a sizzling frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? And when I saw that, two things happened. The first one was I recognized this is infinitely more powerful than my logical reasons why you shouldn't do drugs. This was powerful. But second is this is emotional selling. I have no clue how to do emotional selling, and it scared the heck out of me. Okay. I mean, how do you do emotional selling? You don't teach it in school and libraries and all that stuff. And so what I did was I decided to put a box next to my computer, and I called it the passion box. And every time I saw an ad or heard something or heard somebody say something, I'll give you some quotes and you're going to go, oh, wow, because everybody knows these quotes when I say them. but it's amazing that it sticks to the brain like glue, which is why I call it brain glue. And so but back then I would write on a 3x5 card, because I like 3x5 cards. If I can't see anything else, I'll write on a 3x5 card, "Your brain on drugs." So I'd remember it and I put it in the box. Well, after about 10 years, I moved to Southern California. Our family moved to Southern California, and I met John Gray. And John Gray was an author who was telling me, I wrote this book called Men, Women, and Relationships, and people loved this book. People who read it said, "Man, this book changed my life, changed my relationship. This is the best relationship book I ever had." And yet he said I wasn't selling very many books. And so one day I got this idea. It was actually in an audience. He was trying to sell his book, and he
Mhm.
said something, and all the women started laughing. All the men looked at the women and went like, "What's so funny? Why are you laughing?" And then he said, "See, some things you say and women laugh at, and some things you say men laugh at, and some things everybody laughs at." And one woman said, "Yeah, it's almost like men are from a different planet. What planet do you think men are from?" And he said, "I guess men are from Mars." And everyone started laughing. So when he was telling me when he got home, he started thinking, well, if men are from Mars, where are women from? Venus. Venus is the god of love. So what
Mhm.
happens if I change the title of my book to "Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus," and then just refer to it a little bit through the book, but keep the same book? The sales exploded. He said almost overnight he sold 500,000 copies, and 1,000,000. Now he sold 50 million copies. Okay, can you imagine how if you make $1 a
Yeah.
book? Hey,
Boom.
send it over.
Right.
But it blew my mind that he by changing the title to "Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus," suddenly he sold 50 million books. And so when I got home, I was going to take his book and put it in my passion box, and I stopped and I said, "Wait a second, this is a metaphor. Men aren't really from a different planet." I mean, I think a lot of you women
Yeah.
out there, if you're women, you think we're from. Sometimes we act like we're from a different planet. Yeah,
Right.
but we're not really from a different planet. So at least I don't think we are. But it's a metaphor. It basically is saying he's basically saying in a nice way, in a fancy way, that men and women are so different. It's almost like we're from a different planet sometimes.
Mhm.
And that's what "Men Are
Mm.
From Mars, Women Are From Venus" works. And so I realized, like, wow, is metaphors the secret to emotional selling? And I thought of the guy with the egg. He wasn't holding a brain; he was holding an egg. They're probably sitting around a table saying, "Okay, we got to do an ad for anti-drugs. So if you do drugs, what happens?" And somebody probably said, "Well, it fries your brain." Oh,
Yeah.
okay. What else gets fried? Eggs. Why don't we have an egg and put it into a sizzling frying pan and say, "There's your brain on drugs"? So that's how they came up with it. So what I thought, oh wow, is metaphors the secret? So I took my passion box, which was packed after 10 years. You can imagine all the different things you
Yeah.
see in here. And I dumped it on my bed, and I discovered that metaphors is one of 14 brain triggers at the heart of emotional selling. So I'm going to give you some brain triggers so you can understand this. I thought my brain was going to explode if I just figured out something that nobody's figured out, which I have. And that's why I got famous people. I got Jack Canfield, who did Chicken Soup for the Soul, and he's forcing his people, every single person who works for him, people who sell for him, people who help him create books, people who do the graphics, everybody, he's forced them to read the book and to apply it, which is pretty cool. I didn't know he
Yeah.
was going to do that, but he did. He beat me up over it, by the way. Um, and he beat me up because I changed the topic of my book. I'll tell you this in a second. I changed the title of my book because I'm an idiot. I'm teaching people how to sell emotionally, and I had a logical title for my book, and he got all pissed off at me. He said, "I picked up your book. I couldn't put the damn thing down." I'm like, "I'm sorry. Could I use that as a testimonial?" He said, "On one condition, you got to change the title of your book. You got to, you're teaching us how to sell emotionally, and you got a logical title." And here's how it went. So my book had 3 titles actually. This is the third title, but this is the right title because the whole book is about brain glue. So the first title, I was reading about this guy, Carey Smith, and he sold fans. He had a company called HVLS Fans, high volume, low speed fans. And he was selling sort of okay. He had big fans. They're big fans that go in barns. So if you have a barn and you have horses or cows, you're not going to put air conditioning. You put a fan. And so he had really big fans. And so a friend of his said, "So describe what your fans are like." He said, "Oh, they're big. They're big ass fans." And the guy who had big ass fans, oh, geez, I got to see this. I'm very interested. And he went, interesting. The guy liked it when I said big ass fans. Huh. So he ran an ad called Big Ass Fans, and tons of people started buying his fans. And he went like, wow, I got to change the title of my fans. And actually, he's got a cool logo. He's got a donkey, so which is an ass, with
Yeah.
his butt facing you, and his face off in the distance turns to looking at you. And that's the logo for Big Ass Fans. He made a fortune. He ended up selling his company eventually after 15 years of making sales. He sold it for $500 million. It's amazing. I was like, wow, that's $500 million. I want some of that.
Yeah.
But so I figured, okay, so my book was done and I was ready, but I wanted to come up with a title for it. And so I thought, ass, okay, so why don't I say dump your half-ass marketing strategy? That was the original title. Okay. And then Amazon, we promote our books on Amazon. And if you get more than 100 reviews, Amazon promotes it even more. Okay. And I was at like 80 reviews. But Amazon said, we're going to stop allowing you to sell your book on Amazon. You can sell it other places, but you can't sell it on Amazon because you have a swear word in it. Ass, big ass fans. I'm like, no, really? He said, yeah. And I begged them. I said, well, look, I've got all these reviews. If I change the title, because you guys are forcing me to change the title, would you hold the reviews and put the reviews on a new book? And he said, well, we don't normally do that, but okay, we'll do it once. We'll let you do that. And that's fine. So me, like an idiot, I'm teaching people emotional selling. I came up with a logical title, and it was Sell More with a Right Brain Marketing Strategy, which people love. People love the book, but my friends would say when I changed it to Brain Glue, they couldn't look up James Bond because they don't get you. They get Sean Connery and all these other guys, Daniel Craig and all that stuff. So that doesn't happen. And I can never remember the name of your book. It's such a long title and it's logical, And so we would, we love your book, but we couldn't tell people about it. But so Sell More with the Right Brain Marketing Strategy. So I'm talking to Jack Canfield, and I had a friend who put my book on a pile of books that he looks at, and he was looking at the book and he got really pissed off at me. He said, as I said, I was trying to, I have so many books to look at. I just picked up your book and I couldn't put the damn thing down. It's like, sorry. I said, I used the quote. He said, on one condition, you got to change the title. So that's how it became Brain Glue. But yeah, so I want to give you some Brain Glue phrases. Okay. So I'm old enough to remember President John F. Kennedy. He said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That's something called chiasmus, which is a flip. Okay. It's like, all for one and one for all. It's like they're flips. My wife hates this song, and it's if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. It's a famous song. Well, back I hate that song. Okay. How about this one? Malcolm X. Malcolm X was fabulous. Okay. I mean, he went through quite a changes in his life and everything else. And unfortunately, he got assassinated. But he had fabulous phrases. He loved chiasmus. So he said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock landed on us. That's more powerful than saying, hey, you have no idea how hard it is, being a black person in America. Back then, it was worse,
Mm-hmm.
But instead, he said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock landed on us. He has another line he used, which was fabulous. And it was, when you stand for nothing, you fall for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people know that line, but don't realize it came from Malcolm X, But he loved that. It's a flip, And so these guys that hated Wonder Bread invented sliced bread. But they bleached the bread. But because they invent, often we say, boy, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Well, we don't realize we're talking about Wonder Bread because they invented sliced bread. Back then, you buy the bread and you got to cut it yourself. And so these two guys who hated Wonder Bread, they were competitors. We had COVID. Well, they had this illness called pellagra back then. And it's just like COVID. And so they came up with a slogan. They said to journalists, the whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead. And Wonder Bread almost went bankrupt. What happened was they said, look, here's how it works. When they bleach the bread, it kills all the vitamins and minerals inside the bread. And so, the whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead. They actually, to overcome pellagra, you need vitamin B3, and vitamin B3 is a niacin. You'll see, I've seen it in niacin as an ingredient in a lot of products. I never realized that's what it is, but that's why they put it in. And Wonder Bread actually almost went out of business. They were like dominating, but they almost went out of business because suddenly people went, the whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead. Oh, I'm not going to get Wonder Bread anymore. And so Wonder Bread invented putting uh, vitamins and minerals mixed in with the product after it was, just before you sold it. And so they started that. But yeah, they're just, they're, I'm not going to get into I don't want to get into the election, but I just want to say that Biden's Build Back Better. Buh, 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 okay. We got, there are tons of words that fit like that. Best Buy, Build-A-Bear, Bed Bath and Beyond, buh, 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 okay. How about Weight Watchers? It's called alliteration, the repetition of sound. Whoa, whoa, Weight Watchers. PayPal, Coca-Cola, TikTok. I had this guy who was a barber, and he said, he's cutting my hair, and he said, I'm thinking of starting a franchise, and I don't know if I like the name of my barber shop. Can you think of a name? And I'm going like, okay, while he's cutting my hair, and I'm going, well, haircut, it begins with an H, haircut heroes. Why don't you call it haircut heroes? He goes, everybody in the haircut place is going, yeah, that's really cool. It's like I Love Lucy, Lucille Ball, when they started it. So they wanted to make sure that it's Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, her husband. And they wanted to come up with a name for the show. So Lucy, it has to have Lucy in it. So what are all the words that have L in the beginning of it? Lucky. Why don't we call it Lucky Lucy? I don't know if that'll work. Love. I love Lucy. And because it has alliteration and repetition of sound, suddenly it's more comfortable. You feel good about, about hearing it. So, there's just so many things. I have this guy of one of the trigger words is one of the tools is a trigger word, like ass, big ass fans. Okay, they have this woman who wrote a play that's just off Broadway, and it's become a blockbuster of success. And in fact, HBO did a show on it, and it's about women. It's about women's what women go through. It's hard being a woman for some women, and so she's thinking, what do I want to call it? And she ended up calling it the Vagina Monologues. Okay, you think that gets your attention? Going, what? What's it called? The Vagina Monologues? What the heck's that? If she said, how hard it is being a woman, you think as many people would go to see it as the Vagina Monologues? No, Eve Ensler was her name. But she recognized that you want to, if you can put a name that grabs your attention, then you go like, whoa. I have a TV next to my computer. I never have it on. It's just like in our room. But I'm sitting and typing stuff. And the only time I ever had it on while I was typing stuff. And this guy is a famous baseball player. And I wasn't listening really. It just, sometimes you're listening a little bit and you don't realize it. Mm-hmm. So he says, he's talking about Blue Emu. And Blue Emu is this cream that you put on when you have pain in your joints and stuff like that. A lot of athletes have these problems. And he's going, the Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink. You're saying? And you won't stink? From that moment forward, I was watching it and, what's he talking about? It works fast and you won't stink. And it got me hooked on the phrase. I'm lucky enough that I worked with Warren Buffett's team when he started buying companies. I did some of the things because I'm a behavioral management person, so I kind of know how these things work behavioral. How to get people to change if they hate stuff, like they hate selling. You can teach them how to love selling and stuff like that. And he has a lot of lines like this. And one of his lines, he says, only when the tide goes out. Well, he wanted to say, only when times get tough, do you realize who's really good at what they do and who isn't. So he came up with a line. He said, only when the tide goes out, do you discover who's been swimming naked. Does that grab your attention? I was like, what? Okay. And it's like, there's two guys in Southern California. They started a product, a juice, really natural juice. And the number one juice in America that's a natural juice is called Odwalla, which is owned by Coca-Cola. So it's a blockbuster. That's one thing about Brain Glue. When you come up with these types of tools, you can actually compete with giants and make it, and be successful. And so these two guys came up with this juice, and they wanted to come up with a name that would really grab everybody's attention. So they called it Naked Juice. But they put a small logo on it, naked, so people wouldn't get embarrassed and all that stuff. And they may start making a lot of, pretty good money. So they figured, we have enough money now, we could hire somebody, a graphic artist, to make labels so that they look really good. And the graphic artist said to them, I got to make the word naked big. And they went, oh, you think we should? It's people aren't going to get embarrassed. No. I think you got to make it big. He said, okay, fine. So he designed the labels that if you ever drink it, they're really good juices. If you he designed the labels with the big word naked on top, and sales exploded and shot past Odwalla. It's owned by Coca-Cola. And it's just these two guys who came up with this thing. But that's how powerful when you use these tools, it becomes, it grabs attention. And the reason is because it's important is because I'll go back to, it works fast and you won't stink, We're bombarded with information. If we're running an ad, if you're trying to, they're selling a product. So they're going to put it on a shelf. It's next to a gazillion other juices that are on the shelf. So how do you make it? You want people to go, oh, well, whoa, look at that. What's that all about? And then check it out. And that's what Brain Glue does. Is that it helps you recognize, some of the tools that are really, grab your attention. It's like dirty. If you had a product, would you call it dirty? And yet there's movies, Dirty Dancing, Dirty Harry, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. These are movies that became blockbusters with the word dirty. If they weren't called dirt, Great Dancing, it's like that wouldn't work. But Dirty Dancing is like, what? And it's just, and so when I realized this, it blows my mind. And that's why I love, famous people who learn some of these tools and would apply them. And when you realize it, and I'll go back to, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock, the rock landed on us. I love that line. Only when the tide goes out, you discover who's been swimming naked. These are powerful lines, that when you can use a line like that, it can help you to be really successful. I have this guy I was talking to him and his partner, and he helps people who do advertising. And his name is David Baer, Baer. And so I'm talking to him and I'm listening, and I couldn't remember the name of his company, but him and his partner were there. But as I'm talking to him, I go, I got a perfect name for your company. He said, what? I said, Bare Naked Advertising. His partner goes, yeah. And he's going, I don't know if I want the word naked next to my name. I can't for the life of me remember the name of his company. And I talked to other people, they can't remember the name of his company. I said, if it was called Bare Naked Advertising, do you remember it? Absolutely. Right. But it's just, you want a triggers that, helps people to understand. And rhyme is a good one. I remember O.J. Simpson in his trial, and Johnny Cochran, who was his lawyer, one of Johnny Cochran's friends came up with the phrase at the end. They said, if the glove doesn't fit, you have to acquit. And he said that to the jury right just before they went to judge him. And right after the trial, two of the jurors were being interviewed, and one of them was nodding her head while the other one was explaining this. And the interviewer said, with all that evidence against OJ, how come you found him not guilty? And she looked confidently and she said, we knew if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. The glove didn't fit, we had to acquit. Sticks to the brain, and it's just, right. When we realize that, Jack and Jill went up the hill, right? How many of us don't know that word, right? I could be on my deathbed and you go, Jack and Jill went up there, and I go, hill to fetch a bill of what, it rhymes. The last time I heard it, the last time most of us heard it was 10, 20, for me, 50 or 60 years ago. I'm old. And yet I still remember it like it was yesterday, because there are certain things that stick to the brain like glue, like Naked Juice. I can say, what's your favorite juice? Naked Juice. You don't have to remember the name. It's easy to remember the name because it sticks to our brain. So yeah, it's just really, it's just really cool stuff.
Yeah, I love it, and I'm just thinking, even me, I definitely, in what I do as a speaker, because I'm a public speaker as well, and so just thinking about things that you can put in a speech, like you said, the different phrases that people will remember long after the speech is over, so I definitely see how this applies to my work, but for the everyday person, how could we possibly use this just the everyday person. And I'm kind of thinking maybe even just like, sharing stories of your life, or, having conversation. How can we probably use the information that's in brain glue to, enlighten our conversations.
Well, and that's we want to remember that. So rhyme is a good one. I'll give you a couple of really powerful ones. Okay. So metaphors is a good one. Okay. And so here's what you want to do is you want to say it's just like, and you want to come up with the craziest idea you can first. My book grabs your attention just like a naked man running through your backyard. If you had a naked guy running through your backyard, would you notice him?
Right.
Yeah. What the heck? What's he do? That's my book does that for your products, makes people go like, whoa, what's that? Okay. So metaphor. But so the first thing you want to think of is complete the phrase, my product or idea is just like, and then come up with the craziest idea you can first. Okay. And that's a good way to start. Metaphor. They have this guy, Paul Tran, and he created an electric razor for man's private areas. I don't want to get too much into this,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
But man's private areas. And so he's thinking, I want to come up with a name that everybody knows what the product does, but I don't want to offend people. So it's just like a lawnmower. Why don't I call it the lawnmower? In fact, he calls his company Manscaped. We landscaped a man with a lawnmower,
yeah.
okay? I remember I was in I think Bed Bath and Beyond or something, somewhere with my wife, and they had a big poster. Now I never bought the product, but I'll tell you this in a second. But they have a big poster, and it said the lawnmower, a white page, and it has an arrow pointing to the razor. It's like, what the heck? And I went up there and there are two other guys reading it, and we're laughing as we start reading it. So it's for man's private areas. Oh, okay. That's what it is. But it grabs your attention because a lawnmower? That's not a lawnmower, it's a razor. Okay. So I didn't buy one. If I bought one, I wouldn't share it with my friends. Let's start there. Okay. But
Right.
I can see calling my friend Joe. Hey Joe, guess what I just bought? What? The lawnmower. Oh, why? You have to mow your lawn? No, it's from Shaving Man's private areas. I can see him laughing and calling his wife, hey Mary, guess what James just bought? What? The lawnmower. Oh, he has to mow his lawn? No, it's for shaving his private areas. And it just flew. It would take off like gangbusters, and people would start sharing it. And so, just the first thing, if you think of, is a metaphor, like
Mhm.
it's just like, and it just try to get the craziest idea you can. You don't have to use the craziest idea. You might bring it down but it'll get you going.
Right.
And then
Right.
the second thing is rhyme. Think of rhyme words. I think of rhyme products. Okay. And I'll give you one in a second. That's how they came up with this. But Famous Amos, remember Famous Amos cookies? They're like
Yeah.
the fabulous. Okay, he was actually, his story is great. He just passed away recently, which is sad, but he was really amazing. But Famous Amos, do you think the rhyme helps?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about 7-Eleven? You don't even think about it, but it rhymes and it works in Reese's Pieces, Slim Jims, uh, Jelly Bellies. How about Pooper Scooper? How about Lean Cuisine? Shake and bake. You think it's a coincidence that these guys rhyme? No. They came up with, I want to say this. If you like them or don't like them, that's fine. But I was just trying to show people, like in politics, Fauci. Fauci lied and people died. Huh?
Mhm.
Okay. So I don't want to get into that. But anyway, I'm not being political,
Right.
but it works. So if you're trying to convince somebody, what you do is think of three words that relate or more that relate to what you're trying to say. Okay. And then you can use Chat GPT or one of the AI things, artificial intelligence things, and just ask it, give me 10 words that rhyme with this word, and you get all these words. So I say from my book, uh, so I'm going, it helps you with your pitch. So what are words that rhyme with pitch? Switch, rich. Okay, there we go. Switch your pitch if you want to get rich. There's
Mhm.
one. Okay. And I said, I want to get even a fancier one. So it makes people passionate. So I know what brain glue does. Brain glue lights the fire of desire in your buyer.
Mhm.
Huh. Okay. And when you do, so rhyme is a good tool also. And even, you're doing public speaking, think of something you want to say, and then stop and say, well, what's a way I can say this with rhyme? Like, what are words that rhyme with this? And it's amazing. It takes a little while. You do a little brainstorming, but it doesn't, but you suddenly, like I was going, and I went to Chat GPT, which is free, you guys out there. So it's great. AI, artificial intelligence. But I said, what are words that rhyme with pitch? Because I was going to see your pitch when you're
Mhm.
pitching somebody. And it gave me all these words. I'm going, okay, oh, that one rhyme. Oh, that one go rich. Switch your pitch if you want to get rich. Oh, wow, I got it. And it wakes it up, the brain. It clicks with people. So let me give you a story of a mom and son in Utah who who have no business experience. Okay, but they watch Shark Tank and they love Shark Tank, and they came up with a product that's so great that they made $100 million in less than 2 years. Okay,
Mhm.
so here's what they did. So mom and son were watching Shark Tank and they love Shark Tank, and the idea of like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we could figure out something and get on Shark Tank and they'll make us rich, because they have lots of money and they're connected and all that stuff. So they're thinking about it. It took them about a month. During that month, the mom was constipated because it's trying to come up with a product. You don't just go, hey, that's a great idea. Let's come up with a product. You have to think about it
Mhm.
often. But so they're thinking. So the mom is constipated, and the doctor said to her, when you're on the toilet, I don't want to get too fancy with this, but when you're on the toilet, if you can raise your feet 6 to 8 inches off the ground, off the floor, it actually changes the shape of your body and makes it easier when you're going to the bathroom.
Mhm.
She tried it and it worked. And she went, oh, wow, this is really cool. So she said, well, why don't maybe that's what we should have, is this little stool that wraps around the toilet. And when you're on the toilet, you can slide it out and put your feet on it. Okay, that's cool. So, and you check around. It's easy. They found a manufacturer that makes plastic products that would make a plastic product for them. And they would be able to buy them for like about $3 and they could sell them for $20. Wow, we'll make a lot of money. But they're thinking, so it's toilet stool, but that's not a really good name. I don't, toilet stool, calling it the toilet stool. What's another name for toilet? Potty, like porta potties,
Yeah.
potty. And you're kind of squatting. Squatty potty. Let's call it the squatty potty. Sales exploded. I know. In fact, about 2.5 months ago, I got heart surgery. Not fun, by the way. I want to start there. Okay, heart bypass surgery. It was like, oh, it was terrible. But I was in a hospital, and this nurse was saying, "Hey, so what do you do?" So I was telling her I wrote this book, Brain Glue, and I started telling her the story about the squatty potty. And she said, "Interesting, you should say that. I'm a nurse, so I know you want to raise your feet when you're on the toilet, okay?" So I got a little bench that I put in my bathroom, and I use it for my toilet. But I was in a store, and I saw Squatty Potty, and I loved the name so much, I ended up buying the product. She
Mhm.
already had something that did this, but she loved the name, so she bought the product. That's how brain glue works. It's like it just sticks to the brain like glue. And so she thought, what a cool name, Squatty Potty. I definitely got to get one of these things. And she has it. As a lot of people do, because at $20 a pop, and they sold over $100 million of it. But yeah, just when you start to understand these things, we have to understand that our brains are overwhelmed. We don't realize, like, if you're having a fight with a girlfriend or a wife or something like that, and then somebody's trying to sell you something, only part of your brain is going to be focused on that. It's raining outside. Hey, I forget if I close my windows of my car. You're thinking, but go ahead, tell me what you want to tell me. uh, I think it's bad. What you're doing. Well, too bad. Go away. But it's just, our brain isn't that focused, isn't totally focused on what people are talking about. We think it is, but it isn't. I have a friend he's got narrow minded. He's got a closed mind on something. And so if I said, Albert, you gotta, you're closed minded. You gotta open up your mind. He would start swearing at me. Shut up, go away. Don't tell me I got a closed mind. I need an open mind. So I thought I'd come up with a way to tell him to have an open mind. So I was thinking, so what works best when it's open? An umbrella. If it's raining outside, you don't open your umbrella. That's no good. A parachute. If you jump out of the airplane and that parachute doesn't open, you're really in trouble. A book. You could buy a book, and if you don't open it, you'll never get benefit from it if there's something good inside there.
Mhm.
So I said parachute. So I sat down with him and I said, hey, look, your brain is like a parachute. It works better when it's open. And he went, hmm. Okay, what, you think I have a closed mind? I said, well, no, I'm just saying, don't you think your brain works better when it's, your brain is like a parachute. It works better when it's open. He goes, yeah. And then we had a nice conversation instead of him swearing at me. And so
Yeah.
like these tools kind of work that way where, it makes it easier for people. Two things you want to wake up their brain so they go, oh, what's that? And then you want them to understand what it is you're offering. Squatty potty, once you learn what a squatty potty, I get it. It's a pot, goes on the toilet and you're squatting. I got it. So it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, stuff like that really helps.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm definitely gonna invest in it, and I think I'm probably on the right track with the Deal to Heal podcast. With the
Well, deal to
rhyme.
heal, you think that works so well, deal to heal. I mean, that's just, because it rhymes, it works,
Yeah,
it sticks to the brain and the heart. And I
yeah,
think that's
yeah,
what you want is, I remember I hated selling. I love selling now, but I hated selling when I first started out. And I went to a Zig Ziglar workshop when he was alive. And Zig Ziglar said, he said this and it changed my life. He said, selling is nothing more than a transference of passion. If you're passionate about something, if you love a movie, I love the movie Hidden Figures. You ever see that with the three
yeah,
black women at NASA? They're fabulous. I love, love, love that movie. You guys have to see it. But nobody has to tell me how to sell it. If you love a movie, you got to watch this movie. It's great. That you're transferring passion. And that's what we want to do is deal to heal, transference passion. It's got great words and they rhyme. And
yeah,
so you use those tools when you start to understand these tools. I didn't invent brain glue. This is one of the things I invented the term brain glue, but brain glue itself, people, Malcolm X knew how to do this. He knew how to flip these things around. John F. Kennedy knew how to do this. There are a lot of famous people that know how to do this. Uh, but so Jack Canfield wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. He also wrote 60 other books. Chicken Soup for the Soul uses brain glue tools. None of his other books do, and he's really pissed off that they don't. So they became bestsellers because he sold 500 million Chicken Soup for the Soul books. Can you imagine? 100 million Chicken Soup for the Soul and 400 million of the other Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, Chicken Soup for the Cancer Survivor Soul, and all that stuff. 500 million, that's a massive amount of books. But he said when he wrote the book, he was thinking the first title he was thinking of was 101 Motivational Stories That Will Change Your Life. That was the title that he was going to come up with. But he thought, it's not a motivational title.
right.
It's a logical title, but it's not motivational. So he said it took him about a month. And then one day he woke up and he said, wow, chicken soup makes you feel good. My book makes you feel good. Why don't I call it Chicken Soup for the Spirit? Didn't work exactly, but it was close. Chicken Soup for the Spirit. He said, and then after about a weekend of sleepless nights, he went SOUP, soup, SOUL, soul, soup, soul. That works better. Chicken Soup for the Soul. And that's it. He ended up coming up with the name Chicken Soup for the Soul because he was focused emotionally. He said, oh, these are emotional stories. And here's a logical title. I need, like my book, I need an emotional title, something that really grab people so they understand we're talking about emotion. And so he came up with Chicken Soup for the Soul, and it was fabulous. But then he became famous, and every time he published a book, people would start buying his book, and they became bestsellers. They were good books. He's really fabulous. But he said, he's telling me that no, I could have used brain glue type tools for all the other books. That's why he bought copies and he's forcing everybody in his company to read them, use them. We got to be applying this. We want those types of titles because he said that's why with all the successful books he had, nothing was as successful as Chicken Soup for the Soul. And in a large part, it's a fabulous book, and they're all fabulous books, but it's also the title. The title gets you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
I love it. I love it, James. So first of all, I want to say thank you so very much for being on the podcast. I definitely love the book. I'm definitely going to get a copy myself because I know I can use it. Like I said, especially as being a speaker and even writing, number one, writing books myself and developing workshops and things like that. I know that it's some things that I can use, and I think that in our everyday lives, just sharing our stories, and conversations that definitely can help help us to be able to communicate a little better. So I love the whole idea. And I can't wait again to have you on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. And I'm just going to tell my listeners, all you guys that's listening, make sure that you check out the Girl Dad Discussions podcast and definitely look for James's episode, because we have an amazing conversation before we even started recording. So I know we're going to have another amazing conversation there.
And just one thing, the greatest thing that happened to me when I wrote Brain Glue was my two daughters loved it. They called me and said, "Dad, I love your book." I actually talk about one of my daughters in the first couple of pages, so don't want to get into that, but because it's a surprise.
Right,
But
right.
but yeah, having the relationship with my daughters, I sent copies to them and said, "Just tell me if you think it's okay." And they, literally called me. One of them called me back like immediately and said, "Dad, I love your book." And I know. I hope other people like it too. But she loves my book. You know,
Right.
relationship with our
Yes,
daughters.
yes. So we're definitely looking forward to having you on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. So James, I want you to have the last word, right? And I want you to leave us with a word of advice or motivation, however you feel. Definitely leave us with your um, social media information and your websites and things like that, where we can follow you. Follow you. To my listeners, definitely appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure that you guys are checking me out or checking us out on my web page, which is the dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, because our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with the problem, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So make sure you guys go there. You can find out more about everything that I have going on, including information to have me to come out as a speaker or to facilitate a workshop at your school or organization. So make sure you guys go there and check us out. Also, make sure you guys go to ebooksbyejames.com in order to check out the ebooks that I have there, from the ebooks that I've written, including the Core Four, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father, which we talk about on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. So make sure you guys can go there so you can get a copy of that, as well as the other ebooks that is available at ebooksbyejames.com. Make sure you guys also check out our inspirational t-shirt line. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. So make sure you guys go there to healtees.com, dealtohealtees.com. And we even got our podcast merch there, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it, from the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month. And we talk about everything regarding forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of the world. And so when we have these, we talk about everything regarding forgiveness. Is absolutely free, but the information is priceless. So make sure you guys go to forgivenessmission.com in order to register for our next free virtual workshop, or you can go to Eventbrite and look up Forgiveness Workshop held by the Forgiveness Mission in order to sign up. Again, it's absolutely free. We do it every other month. So whenever you're listening to this podcast, either one just ended or there's one coming up. So go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for our next free virtual workshop regarding forgiveness. James, once again, I want to say thank you so very much for being on and for sharing your information with us. I think it's absolutely amazing, and I know I'm going to be able to use it in my life. So, but again, thank you for being on. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Well, Ernest, two things. By the way, people look at all of the products you have, including the forgiveness thing. I mean, these are fabulous because you understand the power of emotion. And that's why I think we love your podcast so much, is because it's great emotion. But for all of you, think of a metaphor for if you're trying to sell something or trying to sell an idea. It's just like duh, and have fun with it. And just really have lots of fun. Go crazy. Ask friends about it. What's this just like? What's the biggest thing is just like? And have fun with that. And if you go to yesbrainglue.com, at least you can see some examples of how brain glue works and what it is. I think you'd like that. Yesbrainglue.com. Ernest, thank you so much for having me on your show. I love it.
No problem. No problem.
You
We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in one more time to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.